Okay, apologies for that. We'll jump in. So again, when we talk about this this system for driving predictable growth in your business, we're really talking about 4 steps that we're going to go through today. The first one is narrowing your focus to your ideal client. And I'm going to suggest for most of you, that's your top 20-ish% of your customers. And that can be a little bit hard to sort of get your head around that, but I'm going to show you a very practical way to get at that. The second piece is promising to solve a problem for the greatest problem that that ideal client has. And I'm going to be brutally honest with you right now. 99% of small businesses, of all businesses really, are talking all about themselves and all about their products and their services. And I'm going to show you why that's actually a mistake. And the third piece is to create an end-to-end customer journey. So we're not really in charge anymore of the journey that the customer is going on. You know, the buyer is in charge. So we've got to figure out how to guide them on the journey that they want to go on. And we're going to talk about how we do that. And then number 4 is content. So we're all drowning in content. It's so much work to create. There's so much of it out there. I'm actually going to show you a way that you can create less content, but have it be much, much more effective in your business. At the end of the session too, I've got a link that you guys can grab to download some free worksheets that are going to help you put all of what I'm going to teach you today into practice. So hang around for that. Those are worksheets that I usually give out in my coaching program, but I'm going to make them available to you guys for coming out to the webinar, and they'll help you put everything that we're going to talk about today into practice and actually get it working in your business. So let's start with number 1. Narrow your focus to the top 20% of your clients. And when I say that, I'm not telling you to chuck out the other 80%. Absolutely not. But the truth is that some customers are just not profitable. You know, they're a drain on your resources. They're detractors to your business. And the reason for that is because they didn't have the right problem to solve. But, you know, they had money, they came to you, you know, they wanted to buy from you, they wanted you to help solve their problem, so you took them on. I don't know if that sounds familiar to everybody, but I know that happens to a lot of small businesses, a lot of all businesses. It's happened to me in the past too. So whether it's 20%, 25%, 30%, I want you to think about your client base today. And I want you to think about ranking them in terms of profitability. So if you have 10,000 customers, this is going to be a slightly different exercise than if you have 15. But I want you to think about putting your most profitable customers sort of at the top of the list. You know, really taking a piece of paper and listening. Now that could also be a profitable industry or segments of profitable products that some of you sell, depending on your business. But I want you to think in terms of profitability. And the reason that I want you to do that is because quite often profitability is linked to an ideal client fit. You know, someone's profitable because they didn't haggle over price. You know, they had the money and the means to pay a premium for what it is that you do, and they wanted their problem solved that way. So, you know, which of those, you know, those, sorry, and they referred other people to your business. The sweet spot, though, is that upper right-hand corner. So it's your most profitable customers who also refer business to you. And that's what I want you to figure out is who are those folks? Because if we can figure out the common characteristics of that group there, we can do a couple of things. We can start to go out there and we can start to use that language and talk specifically to them and narrow how we're speaking about the problems we solve and our products and our services to attract more people like them. And the second thing that we can do, you know, with that top 20% of your most profitable clients, they would love to do more business with you, maybe 10 times more business with you. But, you know, we all kind of get caught up in that rat race of trying to go out and get the next new customer, but it's much easier and more effective to do more business with the people who already know, like, and trust you. So I want you to figure out what that list is. And then the second piece of this, once you've got that list, your most profitable clients who refer business with you, it's identifying what are the common characteristics that they share. And I'm going to suggest that there's really kind of 3 buckets that we're talking about in this respect. So must have. In most businesses, we have customers, in order to have customers, they must have a certain thing. So if you're a remodeling contractor, somebody must have a home that they want to remodel. If you are a local business, so you do, business in your town, in your area. So your customers must either live or work in that area to do business with you. But then as you're in business a little longer, you start to glean these other aspects that are nice to have. So, for that remodeling contractor, maybe it's that, for their customers, the husband and the wife both work out of the home, but they like to entertain a lot. So they use their home maybe a little different than other people. And then I'm sure you've all had those sales conversations where somebody's, on the phone or in front of you, and they're talking about, they're explaining their issues, they're explaining their problems, and you're just nodding your head and yes, I can solve that really quickly. So what are the ideal characteristics that makes up someone like that? I'll give you an example from my business. So small business owners who participate in their industry, are active in Chamber of Commerce and in industry groups. They believe investing in their business and the community. They're really in it for the long haul to establish a reputation. That's a characteristic of an ideal client for me. So now you need to figure out what those characteristics of your ideal clients are for your business. Now I'll just show you really quickly. This is one of the worksheets that you're going to grab at the end of the session that'll help you sort of work through this problem and brainstorm out all of these must have, nice to have, and ideal to have characteristics of your ideal client, because you really want to get a sense of what makes them tick. What you're doing here, if anyone's familiar with the term, buyer persona or customer persona, you're creating a persona of that ideal customer, that person you want to have more of in your business, so that you can target what you're saying, what you're doing, where you're going, where you're showing up in order to engage and attract them. So the second step in the process is to promise to solve a problem. And now here's a cold, hard truth. Nobody wants what we sell. They want their problem solved, period, end of story. But if we can help them understand that we get where they're coming from, that we understand their problem, then they're going to listen to us. Because our product and service really, for them at the end of the day, is just a solution to their problem. But so to get at that, we have to understand their challenges, their dreams, the things that are draining on them, the problems that they're going through. We have to understand that for our ideal customers. And then we have to communicate that to them. And that is done with a core message that promises to solve the biggest problem that they've got. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So probably everyone here today and everyone listening to the recording is a business owner or an entrepreneur. So you know all of the pressure of the different hats that you're wearing. You're making dozens of decisions every day. My client in this case was an accounting firm serving small businesses. And I went out and I interviewed their clients. And that's something, by the way, I want you to get into the habit of doing, is going out and interviewing their ideal clients. But anyway, I interviewed their clients and I heard several times from them, yeah, they provide great service and they help me get my taxes filed on time. And I think I'm paying less. And when I need an audit, it's really great. But what they really do for me is they help me understand my financials in a way that allows me to make better business decisions. I'm more confident about the decisions that I'm making in my business. And that's the problem that they were solving for their ideal clients. So here's another example from a different industry. So construction companies quite often have a problem with the big project. They have to go, they have to get people, they have to get equipment, they have to get all these things in place before they ever really get paid. So the client in this particular case was an architect. And their clients, the construction companies, said, they do great work, but what they really do for us that we love is they help us get paid faster. And it's kind of a bit of a head scratcher, but it turns out the principal architect in this case was on zoning boards in the town where they worked. So consequently, they knew where the red tape was. And that meant they knew how to get their plans approved faster. And if a plan gets approved faster, contractors get to make the first draw and start taking money out sooner. So the core message for this architect was not, we design great buildings. It was, we help contractors get paid faster. Because that's what their customers care about. So you can start to see how, speaking to your customers and going out there and interviewing can really help you get at the real reason that they love doing business with you. So that's my challenge to you. I want you to pick up the phone, or if you meet face to face with your customers from time to time, I want you to sit across the table with a coffee, and I want you to ask them questions. I want you to ask them, how did you find us in the first place? What made you hire us? What do we do that's different than others? Why do you continue to stick with us month after month, year after year? When you ask these questions, you're going to hear responses back that are less than helpful. You're going to hear, well, you provide great service, which doesn't really tell you much. So you're going to have to probe. So, okay, so that's awesome. Tell me about a time that I provided great service to you. Or what does great service mean to you, mean for your business? Poke away at that until you start to get a couple of layers below and listen for what those themes are. And here's another tip for you. Google reviews are now a gold mine for messaging. So every business should be collecting these reviews, and I hope that all of you guys are. But what I want you to do is I want you to go and I want you to read these reviews word for word, looking for themes. Because people who have taken the time to give you a review, you've exceeded their expectations. You've solved their problem. So I'm going to give you an example of what I mean here. I'm going to go through a few reviews for a local business, and I pulled out some key themes from each of the reviews. Oops. So they came and worked as scheduled and cleaned up nicely after it was done. The guys showed up on time and did a wonderful job. In the past, we've dealt with people who don't show up or do a professional job. Everything is cleaned up very well. So I went through those kind of quickly. You might not have noticed that this was for a tree service business, because in none of those quotes did it say anything about the tree service. And the perception is, in a lot of cases, anyone with a chainsaw in a truck can cut down a tree. But what they're not getting from people like that is someone who shows up when they say they will and who cleans up the job site when they're done. That's the problem that this company was solving for their ideal customer. And now it's above the fold on their website. Our promise to you, we'll show up when we say we will, and we'll clean up before we leave. So what's the real problem that you're solving for your customers? That needs to be what you lead with in your messaging. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about how you figure out who you need to be targeting, the top 20%, and how to craft a core message that speaks to their biggest problem, how why they love doing business with you. It's the problem you're solving. Now I'm going to show you in the next part how you figure out where to put that message and how to package it. So step 3 is creating an end-to-end customer journey. Now, a lot of people out there talk about the customer journey, but people still talk about it like it's a funnel. Like we just find the right channel and we pile all of the, we pay for advertising, we pile all these people into the top of the funnel, and enough of them pop out the little end as customers, and blah, that is the end of the journey. But that's not really a reality. We have to guide people on the journey that they want to go on. I understand, though, this obsession with tactics and channels, and there's a lot of pressure on all of us to focus on those tactics. 61% of mobile searchers are more likely to contact a local business if they have a mobile-friendly website. So, we've got to really look at our websites, and does it perform well? All these different channels. And 87% of customers won't consider a business with low ratings. So we talked about Google reviews a minute. We've got to pay all this attention to all these different places people can leave a review. Make sure that we're there. Make sure we're paying, attention to it. 64% of consumers say watching a video on Facebook has influenced the purchase decisions. So, wow, not only do we have to be in all of these channels, now we have to customize our content in each of them to fit them. And 92% of consumers will visit a brand website for the first time for reasons other than making a purchase. So our website, it's not just there to take orders, it's got a lot of jobs to do. So, you can see there's so much pushing us to focus on all these tactics, and I'm sure you guys experience this every day, but I want to share with you 2 more statistics that I hope will get you thinking a little bit differently about this. So 86% of buyers will pay more for a better customer experience. I don't know about you guys, but I know that I will, and I know that I have in the past. So maybe there's actually money to be made in focusing on what happens after somebody becomes a customer. One more. 83% of business owners claim their main source of new business is referrals. So that's true of most business owners that I talk to. Texas Tech did a survey, though. It was really interesting. They surveyed 2,000 consumers. And in that survey, they found 86% of those consumers told them there was a business they dealt with that they loved so much they would happily refer it to other people. But when they asked them, how many of them actually had referred that business to other people? I mean, what do you think that number is? The number that actually had referred it was 29%. So from 86 to 29. So maybe there's some money to be made in closing that over 50% gap of people who love us, but never ever tell anyone else. Because of all the things that have changed about marketing in the last 5 years, the thing that's changed the most is how people choose to become customers. The customer journey today looks a whole lot more like this. That marketing funnel, that linear path that I showed you earlier, it doesn't really exist. The ways that your customers come in contact with you is largely, when they ultimately decide to purchase, is largely out of your control. Marketing today is less about creating demand and it's more about organizing behavior. So it's at this point on that note of it, I want to introduce to you what I think is sort of the linchpin of this conversation about strategy and about creating a system for predictable growth. It's certainly the linchpin component of the small business marketing success system that I employ. It's something called the marketing hourglass, and it was developed by John Jantz at Duct Tape Marketing, if any of you are familiar with him. It's a tool that we use to figure out where we need to show up and how we need to package our message. So certainly, if you think about the shape of an hourglass, the upper part of it looks very much like a funnel, and there's nothing inherently wrong with, creating demand and trying to move people through to become customers. The problem is for many businesses, that's where the marketing stops. But what I want to suggest to you or insist to you is really, we need to keep the excitement going there. That's where a whole new journey is starting. So the marketing hourglass has 7 stages, and they're really more behaviors than they are the typical stages in a funnel or customer journey. So it's know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer. And you don't really have to look much further than your own buying habits to sort of understand that these are really behaviors. If I have a problem, I certainly want to come to know who's out there. What are the answers? Who are the people that have solutions to the problem? And then once I discover somebody, what happens? What do we do? We immediately go to their website. Maybe the site looks tacky or loads slow. Maybe the forms don't work. And then we start making these subconscious snap decisions. We don't even necessarily know that we're doing it, but it happens about whether or not we like this business before we know, right? And then trust is really where we make that go, no-go decision. Okay, who else trusts them? Who else have they gotten this result from? And then, what can I try? How can I find out what it might be like to work with this company before I hire them or buy from them? And I'm not just talking here about a 30-day software trial. A phone call to your business is a trial. An email exchange is a trial. Every engagement in every way that you have with a prospective client is a trial, whether you choose to view it that way or not, right? And then most people like to buy, but most of us have also been let down in the process. Buyer's remorse is a real thing. So we want that experience to stay, very high at that stage. And then, if I find somebody that meets my needs, I don't go back to square one next time we've got the same problem. I just go right back to them. And then finally, as human beings, I think that we are hardwired to tell others about a great experience, to tell others about, how we solved a problem that we have. So we need to figure out, what are we doing at each of these stages to guide people on the journey that we want to go on. And that's how we use the marketing hourglass. So these first 3 stages of know, like, and trust, this is where we create the relationship. This is how we attract that ideal client, by guiding people through these stages, educating them and building trust. That's how we attract somebody who's ideal, who's willing to pay a premium for what it is that we do. So when I do workshops on this, I generally ask people to give me a list of ideas that have how do people come to know you, and I always get tons of answers. This is a relatively easy. We got to run advertising. We have to show up when somebody goes out and searches. We need to put our content out there, participate in social media, build communities. We need to look for referrals, right? We may have a sales team that's out there making outbound cold calls. We need to do networking. This one is pretty straightforward. They get a little bit more challenging as we go in there, but what happens once somebody knows us? How do people get to like us? That core message that we spoke about is one of the first things that we're going to read. We're going to say, wow, I connect with them. Nobody else shows up on time. They're promising they're going to show up on time and clean up when they leave. It's the elements of our brand. We've all been to websites where the colors don't look quite right and the graphics just don't work for us. It's the story that they're telling about their business, the content that they're willing to share, how they participate in social media. It's the personality there, even the user experience, right? If a website loads very slowly, that's a frustrating thing. And we start to make those snap decisions, whether we know about it or not. And then, next comes trust. And in trust, it's really all about the visual cues. Do I see logos of companies I know? Do I see the company being featured in publications that I read? Is there social proof? Are there reviews? Are there case studies that I can have a look at? Things that really allow me to say, yeah, this is a legit business. They're working with people like me that I know, people that have the same problems that I'm trying to see. And the next two stages, try and buy. This is really the bridge to long-term success. That doesn't happen after you run some ads and you get a customer and then you ask them for a referral. It happens in the process of how they become a customer. So what does our try look like? It tends to be all the standard things. It's a quote request, it's a phone call, it's a free evaluation, just the way that our forums work. It's deeper content that people can walk away with. It sort of gives them a feel of what's it like to work with you. And then when somebody's ready to buy, what does that process, what's that transaction like? Have you ever taken a step back and sort of broke down, what's it feel like to be a customer of me, of my business? Do you have onboarding? Do you have any sort of orientation? One of the real gaps that I see out there is that we tend to think that content is just used to get an order, to generate a lead. But one of the best uses of content that I've seen is after the sale, to teach people the value of what they got, to teach them how they can get more value from what they just bought. Because if we do a good job here, this leads to our ability to scale with our existing clients instead of constantly having to rely on going out and finding new leads and new clients. So and then those final two stages, repeat and refer. In repeat, what's your retention process look like? Are you continuing to educate people? Do you have special offers for existing clients, and are you cross-promoting to them other products and services? My experience is, if you focus on that top 20% of your client base that we talked about, 20% of those would probably do 10 times more business with you. And 20% of that group might do 100 times more business with you if you can, show them, help them understand what else you can help them with. Because if you're already delivering value to somebody, they're going to beg you to solve them other problems. So, and then lastly, refer. So most referrals are going to happen accidentally. So what can we do here to stay top of mind? What are you doing to nurture your champion clients? Those are the folks who are already out there referring business to you. There's a huge amount of business too in co-marketing, strategic partner networks. Strategic partners are those people who serve the same ideal client as you, but in a non-competitive way. And how can you partner with those? But these all have to be intentional processes that you build into your overall marketing plan. It won't happen accidentally. And marketing doesn't stop after, you run the Facebook ads and you get the client. Marketing doesn't end until someone is telling other people about your business. So the good news is, there's never really been a better time to sort of rethink every aspect of your business and this process, because people are hungry for a better, more guided experience. So let's move on to our final step. I want to talk about content. And, a lot of people out there are talking about content. You've probably heard the phrase, content is king, and content is air. But all this content has created a real glut. I have a dump truck up there because, so many businesses will just back that dump truck up and they'll raise the bucket and dump all this content out without any real strategic goals. But content is not a tactic. Content is the voice of your strategy. So, and I'm not just, when I say content, I'm not just talking about blog posts. I mean, certainly those are content, absolutely. But, your emails are content, your videos are content, case studies you might have are content, your reviews are content. What you say and do at a referral event, or a networking event, that's content. So this needs to be focused. All of that content needs to be focused on guiding people through the stages of the hourglass that we've just looked like. Now, each of your businesses is obviously different. And the questions that your ideal clients are going to have at each stage of their journey of know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer are going to be a little bit different. So this is where we go back to the marketing hourglass and go through it again, but this time from the perspective of content. What type of content do we need to have at each of these stages? And what are the questions that we need to be answering with that content at each stage? Content is a tremendous lever to help you move people through this process. So, we'll go through it again. In the know section, it's your landing pages, it's your blog posts, core web pages, free tools. All of these things you see in that list, they're types of content that people are going to consume when they're just out there doing that initial research. But what happens when they click on a link on a page? What are the the tip sheets there? Are there how-to videos? Now we're going to start to say, okay, I hadn't really thought about that, but that angle that this person really seems to know what they're talking about. And then in the trust category, is the content segmented to the user, so it's speaking directly to them? Does this person seem to understand what my specific needs are? Are there case studies and webinars and comparison guides? Each of these is a great vehicle to communicate why somebody should trust you. And then we move on to try, when they're ready to take that step. How do they do it? Is there a master class? Maybe there's assessment they can take. If you've got a physical product, do you have free samples that they can try? A guarantee, quite frankly, is a tremendously powerful piece of content at the try stage. And then in buying, is there an audit? Are there bonuses that you offer when somebody buys? What's the knowledge base look like, if that's relevant to your business, that helps me get the most out of my purchase? Think in terms of the best type of content that conveys to your ideal client, the answer to the questions about how they're going to put what they just purchased to use to solve their problem, to deal with their challenge, they're aspiring to something to get to that goal. And then, in repeat, is there onboarding content? Do you have a bounce back offer to get somebody back into your store, back onto your website again? Can you train them to promote your products? Are there ways for me to see the results that I could get if we were to continue working together? And then in refer, are you conducting results reviews with your clients? Do you do, whether it's formal or informal, do you train people how to refer to you? Are you working with those strategic partners that I mentioned before? This can even be as simple as, do you have a referral card that they can give to someone when they're talking to, that has a similar problem to them? Each one of these stages in the hourglass has a specific need for a type of content. So what I would ask you to do as you're working through this is consider every piece of content that you've got now, every piece of content that you're thinking about or could create, and think about what stage in the hourglass it belongs in. And be strategic, because if you focus every piece of content on one element of the customer journey, your content will become the voice of your strategy. And that will mean that you'll be able to produce less of it, but it will still have a massive impact on your business. So let me just quickly sort of recap those 4 steps again. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to narrow your focus to your top 20% of your customers and figure out their common characteristics. And then you're going to come up with, a problem-solving core message that speaks to their biggest problem that they're solving. And then create an end-to-end customer journey using the marketing hourglass. And then go back and peg every piece of content you either have or are going to create to one of those stages to answer the questions that they've got that they need answered to move to the next stage in that journey. And use your core message that you've developed as the foundation for that content, to weave that in, to speak to the problem you've got. So if you develop a plan that does that, you'll have a marketing action plan that will unlock predictable growth for you and help move people through that. So there are a couple of ways that you can make this happen. I like to call it the easy way and the hard way. If you're a DIY kind of person and you want to go down that path, there's a recording of this webinar that I'm going to be sending out sometime tomorrow. And you can take some additional notes to that, download those free worksheets that I'm going to give you. They are worksheets that I actually use in my coaching program when I teach, small business owners or their marketing department how to install this system that you can actually use to put this all to work. And then, you can go out and become an expert on things like webinar, Facebook marketing, cold emails, Google Ads, whatever is relevant to your business is absolutely doable, and you'll be able to work through it with the worksheets and going back through the webinar again. Or there's what I like to call the easy way. And that's, scheduling a 15-minute touch base with me. And I can kind of give you some direction on, see maybe if I can help you. Now, there's no cost to that call, but if I do think that I'm able to help you, I can share what that would look like. And there's zero pressure here. If that sounds good to you, we can move forward. And if it doesn't, that's totally cool. I'm just thankful that I could give you a little bit of value. So if that's of interest to anybody, you can, grab that link, goodideasmarketing.com/call, or use your phone to activate that QR code and book that 15-minute call. And even if you're not a good fit or you decide that it's not for you, through that call, you're going to get a free website report as part of this process and a list of competitor keywords that you can use in your own SEO, search engine optimization. Quit using acronyms. Not everybody knows that. Or your Google Ads if you're doing that, just for booking and coming out to the call. And of course, it's totally up to you to book that call or not. And if the DIY is your preferred method, here is the link, and I will drop this in the chat when I stop sharing, that you can go to grab those free worksheets, yourmarketingmentor.ca/free-worksheets. So I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to stop the recording first. And then I will drop this into